Why did the US's biggest trading partner suddenly turn into its biggest rival? That's exactly what rocked the auto world. Canada, which exported 93% of its vehicles to the US in 2024, had been forced to move to Chinese auto giants. A move that went towards crippling a 1.1 million car supply to the US, sending car prices soaring and redrawing trade maps across the globe. From rising tariffs to collapsing EV investments, what's unfolded was way more than a political spat. It was an economic earthquake. So, was this the start of America losing control of its own auto future? Stick around, hit that like and subscribe button for more updates, and let's unpack the details. When Trump dropped the hammer with a 25% tariff on imported cars and auto parts, the global auto industry jolted. Washington framed it as a bold push to bring jobs home and punish freeloading allies. But to trading partners like Canada, it felt like a betrayal. Almost immediately, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney called it a direct attack on Canadian workers. Ottawa fired back with its own 25% tariffs on US-made cars and parts, but with precision. Canada avoided taxing vital components to keep its industry running, targeting US exports not compliant with USMCA instead. Trump's tariffs hit a massive segment. 46% of all US vehicles sold in 2024 were imported. The blowback was swift. Stock prices of General Motors, Ford, Stellantis, Toyota, and Honda dipped. Canada's retaliation, affecting over 35 billion Canadian dollars in US imports, was designed to sting American political strongholds. The goal? Pressure Trump at home. Canada's message was loud and clear. Hit us and we'll hit where it hurts most. But retaliation was just the beginning. Next, Canada looked east to China. Behind closed doors, Canada wasn't just playing defense. It was laying down contingency plans. Talks with China escalated quietly but significantly. Chinese officials proposed an anti-US alliance in trade, offering support against economic bullying. While publicly cautious, Canada didn't slam the door. China, after all, controls a majority of the global supply of key EV battery minerals like cobalt and rare earths. The future of autos is electric, and Beijing holds the keys. Ottawa imposed a 100% tariff on Chinese EVs, aligning with US concerns. Yet Canadian officials still engaged in dialogue with China. The reality is stark. Canada doesn't have a domestic car company of its own. The EV revolution it's legislated for 2035 depends on foreign supply. The Chinese auto giants, including a proposed merger between Dongfeng and Chang'an, produce nearly 5 million vehicles annually, rivaling General Motors and Stellantis. Canada's growing EV sector can't afford to ignore that kind of power. So, while tariffs burn bridges with Washington, Canada may be quietly building new ones with Beijing. Meanwhile, Detroit was already bleeding. The US auto industry didn't only get its steepest decline, it got hurt at its core. Trump's tariff on imported vehicles and auto parts landed like a sledgehammer on an already strained sector. The numbers looked staggering. Analysts estimated the tariffs could pile on $100 billion in annual costs, with new car prices spiking between $5,000 and $15,000. And the predictions came out right. Ford has already cut or delayed $12 billion in EV investments. General Motors pulled out of a $5 billion joint EV project with Honda and is halting production of electric trucks in Michigan. Stellantis saw its stock drop 20% in April alone. Even Tesla, with most of its operations in the US, saw its share price slide 12%. Meanwhile, automakers like Volkswagen, Jaguar Land Rover, and Audi are pausing or slashing exports to the US as they try to assess the financial damage. Inventory buildups are temporary shields, but they won't last. Once stockpiles run low, consumers will feel the full impact in their wallets. The threat of certain models being pulled from the US market is real, especially smaller, lower-margin vehicles that won't survive the new cost structure. The US auto machine is still running, but now it's coughing smoke and leaking oil. And that chaos is being passed straight to consumers. The average new vehicle price is ballooning. S&P Global says it could raise monthly payments from $750 to $840. Used car markets are surging, and analysts are warning of the Cubanization of US roads, people holding onto cars longer, just like Cuba did post-revolution. Inventories of EVs are piling up. Prices are 28% higher than gas-powered rivals, and they sit on lots 24% longer than a year ago. Even Tesla had to slash prices to stay subsidy eligible. Shrinking options, higher prices, panic stockpiling, and shrinkflation are all becoming the new normal. Canada faces its own pressures. Tariffs on U.S. consumer goods have raised everyday costs. Critics argue Canada's flat 25% rate casts too wide a net. Meanwhile, building up local EV supply isn't easy, costs are high, and infrastructure is lagging. Consumers in both countries are being crushed between political posturing and economic reality. But these aren't isolated incidents. The entire global system is shaking. The ripple effects of Trump's tariffs didn't stop at North America's borders. They exploded across the globe. China hit back with 125% tariffs on U.S. goods, banned key exports like rare earth tech, and blacklisted dozens of American firms. Europe is investigating Chinese EV subsidies, possibly setting the stage for its own trade clash. Major automakers are now rethinking where and how they manufacture cars. Countries facing U.S. tariffs are eyeing back doors, using Mexico and Canada as launch pads into the American market via USMCA. This circumvention risk has pushed Washington to pressure Ottawa and Mexico City into aligning their tariffs with U.S. policy, especially against China. Canada has responded with 100% tariffs on Chinese EVs and 25% on steel and aluminium, signaling it won't stay neutral. Meanwhile, the 2026 USMCA review looms large. The U.S. auto tariffs violate the spirit of USMCA and, if unresolved, could lead to exports between the three countries shrinking by up to 55%. That's not a trade scuffle. That's an economic quake. What started as a tariff tug-of-war is now a full-blown reshuffling of global trade alliances. And that reshuffling raises the biggest question of all: where these countries went from here. Canada is officially on the hunt for new trade routes. Mark Carney said it plainly. The U.S. is no longer a reliable partner. Ottawa is investing billions in EV factories from Stellantis and Volkswagen. But by 2035, it's betting all in on a zero-emission future. The catch? Canada controls no major automakers, and China still dominates battery minerals. The U.S., meanwhile, is trying to force manufacturing back home. But the ecosystem, labor, minerals, and processing don't move overnight. Trump's tariffs may spark investment, but they also invite retaliation, raise costs, and shrink market access abroad. And while America battles Beijing in trade, China's quietly making inroads with everyone else, including Ottawa. For China, this is an opening. It's already cornered the mineral market, dominates EV production, and is now positioning itself as the alternative to U.S. hegemony. But its own practices, from subsidies to forced labor allegations, are under scrutiny worldwide. The West's dilemma is clear: rely on a rival or build an expensive alternative. One thing's for sure, the auto world is still at a crossroads from the outcomes of Trump's trade war, and the next few months might decide who leads it for decades to come. In the end, let's take a quick overview of the details from today's video. Trump's auto tariffs kicked off a global chain reaction. Canada responded with immediate effect and shifted toward new partners. U.S. automakers suffered massive losses. Consumers are still stuck with higher prices and fewer car choices. Other countries, especially China, quickly circled the opportunity. And for now, the future of North American trade hangs on the 2026 USMCA review. Will Canada be able to secure new global deals? And can the U.S. auto industry maintain its struggling dominance? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like the video and subscribe for more such breakdowns. See you in the next video.